Welcome to another presentation from the Missing Faces in Teaching. My name is Dr. Marie Charles, and today's presentation is going to, in the continuation of the concepts that I explore, surnames and the foundational cultures across Europe, we're going to focus on the Prime Minister's surname. And because I'm in a flow state in terms of the onomastics and the research, that when I came across his name, it just immediately took me to the foundational cultures across Europe who are moving through with their surnames. This is so very, very important. So that Keir Starmer has a foundational set of names. And the reason why I'm pausing there momentarily is because we must not get confused or put off even, because it's quite a leap in terms of our conceptual understanding, that when the name appears in Ireland or Scotland or Britain, that those names are coming up from Germany and France. And we're going to look at the Czech Republic today and understand that this European foundational set of black cultures are moving through and influencing Britain. This is so very, very important. So that if a name appears in Ireland, you have to be able to keep this international strand in your head. And of course, I'll make that clear today as we move forward. Now, I do hope that the crest has come onto the slide, because again, I'm always looking at a blank slide. But we find Hermann Starmer with his crest from Hamburg in Germany. Yeah, we won't go into Hamburg, that for obvious reasons, and ham and all the rest of it. But we see the angled arm coming out of the crest. And I spoke about that in my last presentation from the Annes family. And I also include it in the dictionary, that it is related to the female. Originally, its blueprint, and it was to do with ancient knowledge systems. But Hermann Starmer, or Shamer, as it moves through time, it changes its pronunciation and some of the vowels, is or represents a noble family from Hamburg. Now, we find that, which again, onomastically, when we get into the definitions, that Starmer actually relates to, is sometimes spelt with a TH in the middle, from Lower Germany, and it relates to the stammerer, you see, as it relates to one's speech and how that translates itself through utterances. And we find Stamer without the H as a form of the stammerer in 1270. And so when we move across and we look at the spelling or the variants or the derivatives of Starmer, we see that it morphs into the word Starmore, and we find that surname in Staffordshire in Britain. And so we're already in Germany for his surname through the onomastics and hereditary evidence. And so spatially, geographically, we're back in Ireland for the analysis of his first name, Kieran. Kieran is the little black one. How do we know this? Well, onomastically, yes, which I'm going to explain in a couple of seconds. But the artifact that you see on the left is from St. Kieran's Crocia around the 11th century, from County Offaly, which is in Leicester, approximately 60 miles from Dublin. Now, as you can see his face quite clearly. Well, it may not be clear to you, but as the other artifact comes onto the page, you can see the cultural continuities. He's clearly a melanated, foundational individual, Kieran, as we can see the wonderful example from the Ivory Coast, which is a carved statuette, and that can be seen again with the surrounding documents in issue 6. But you see how very interesting those stylistic elements are being retained in both of those artifacts for Kieran, who is the little black one. And we find that this is in issue 14, it's a footnote, and we find that black, or cara, is another form. In Gaelic it is Ciar, which is spelt car, Ciar, with a K and the C and with a double E. In all modern Scottish surnames, all of which are simply Ciar, which means swarthy or dark brown, which signification attaches more distinctly to the word dub, or dove as it is pronounced, which means black. And then this quote goes on, in the list of border chiefs who took assurance of protector, the names of the border cares are spelt car, or care. And of course they, on the Scottish borders, would have been in those governance positions from that particular name. We also find that the name Kieran means the little dark one. Kieran, a diminutive of Ciar, which is black or dusky. And the name is related to Mac-Hirian. This was a common name, particularly in Bute, which is in Scotland, but is now extinct. And of course this then goes on with all of the clans associated with Ciar and Kieran. The name means little black. The names of the brothers of the first were Donan, or Donnan, little brown, Odran, little grey, and Cronan, little tawny. These names indicate that this family were dark complexioned, and the saint, having left Ireland to labour in Cornwall, his name reappears there with a regular brythonic change of Q to C to P in the form of Piran or Piran. You see, you have to keep track of all of these linguistic changes with the name. But as you can see, Kieran is the little black one. And so the linguistic, gymnastics and geographical movements now require us to understand that Ciar as a surname, you see, many of these first names become surnames and vice versa, is found in Saxony, which borders Czech Republic. And so you can see from this crest from Germany, from the Ciar family, that he is indeed the little dark one. So onomastically, we find the evidence being supported by the archaeology and the material culture of these founding populations. Kieran, Ciar Starmer, is the little dark one, or the little black one. And so as we move on to this slide, just focus on that yellow arrow, because spatially we must always keep orientating ourselves. And as you can see, that is Hamburg, where Herman Starmer at the beginning of this presentation. That's where that family were found. Just a little aside, there's going to be phones going off and all the distractions, that's normal. I can't stop that. There's a little bit of an echo coming through, but we'll carry on. Apologies if the phone does go again. Now, this map is very, very important because I've taken it from the newly released dictionary series, and it's a fragment, it's a segment, because every highlighted location that you see is the migrations of the surnames that I have tracked and evidenced into Britain. And I show it with an original melanated face as the holder of that surname. We can't go into that today because you can see there are just so many. There are so many names and surnames that I've been able to evidence. But Hamburg, you see, that's just one small example of how this Starmer surname finds itself from those foundational melanated cultures of Europe. And so we're just going to focus on because this is, a jigsaw puzzle that we're putting back together, and there are lots of little pieces that you have to keep talking about, but it is part of that coherent narrative or whole. Let's just hop across into the Czech Republic, because this is also another FB region. Well, the whole of Europe is, but we're just going to have a little look at the Czech Republic, and we're going to look at the surname Brun or Bruno, which is a form of the surname Brown, which we looked at on another presentation, but I really develop in the dictionary series with all of those cultural continuities and their European kinfolk. But the Czech Republic is important because I'm going to focus on another individual in the public domain whose name and what she was representing was giving more of a clue to those foundational cultures of Europe. Now, let's just refresh ourselves with the Czech Republic, and as you can see, there is a yellow strand there that has one of the regions called Brun. Now, why is Brun important? Because we find that, and this is from issue 15, you see, all of my publications are jigsaw puzzles that you have to keep going back to keep putting this back together again, because it has been so fractured, this history, into those tiny, tiny pieces that sometimes you miss. So what does Sir Arthur Keith tell us, who was a 19th century anthropologist, who says that in this region, in the Czech Republic of Brun, the chief town of the Austrian province then of Moravia, some 60 miles from Vienna, that a series of skulls were found in 1885, and they matched up. I'm paraphrasing now because there's a lot to read, and sometimes it's just too much, but I'm paraphrasing that those particular skulls shared the same physiology as those found in Kent, in London. You see, that's important. And he says that this type is still met with amongst modern British people, and that the riverbed type, or the Galley Hill type, as they called them, point to a relationship with Negroid races. Okay, so that's very important that we have that underlying conceptual framework of knowing that Brunn in the Czech Republic had a founding black population that moved and migrated across Europe. We also find that within the Czech Republic, that in the Czech Republic, that this is another important region for the governance and nobility and reigning monarchs from the Czech Republic. And I talked about that in another presentation. And those were Bretislav and his sons. And you will see that on another presentation, but I document that in issue 16, that they are ruling the Czech Republic, these FB populations, in roles of governance. And so the Czech Republic is important, is very, very important because of the Moravian nobility. As you can see, that particular crest has come onto the slide. Now, let's keep this in mind. Czech Republic, like all of those European regions, are governed by indigenous populations. Okay, so the last slide, if you just go back, you will see I asked a very important question on that little Moorish bejeweled brooch. And I said, well, why is this Moor so important? So as we move into the Czech Republic and locate one of the royals, one of the British royals today, onomastically, we can trace that the founding populations clearly of the Czech Republic relate to Princess Michael of Kent. Now, from that little red dot, I hope you can see that little red dot, because that is where she is born. And her name is Princess of Kent, born Marie Christine Anna Agnes Hedwig von Rybnitz or Rybnitz in Karlovy Vary, which is in the Czech Republic, but it borders Germany, you see. And I do encourage you to go back and have the spatial orientation of all of those names that were mapped out in France and Germany. Now, this individual, Princess Michael of Kent, is born in this royal region. Now, what have we found onomastically? Well, I'm asking the question, what is the connection between Kent, Czech Republic, and the FBBs? When we look at the root or the compound of her surname, which is Rybnitz or Ryb, we find that as a compound or a root, it means Ryban, which is the fisherman. Now, Ban or the Bans were the original populations, or one of the migratory populations that we found in Scotland and Ireland, you see. Then we find that she is part of the ruling elites in Kent. Now, Kent is another rich FBB region that I also document in my issues. But what we have found as the visual evidence, clearly from the heraldic crests, is that we find Kentman as a surname is from Germany. And so the name Kentman, I'm not sure whether it's actually come on, is found from a German coat of arms of bourgeois families from Germany. Kenman is found in Hamburg, same region as Starmer, and is related to Kenning, the Frisian personal name of Kenno, which is also a form of Kenisa and Kennilosus. We also find the prefix Ken in the parishes of Devon and Somerset, and is a form of Kennedy, you see, which meant the head of a clan. The Kennedys or the Kennys, who settled in Ireland during Edward IV's reign, were of high antiquity of Somerset, deriving their name from Ken in that county. And so this is what we find, that Kentman or Ken or the Kens are moving up from Germany and are populating and providing the surnames or the onomastic evidence into Kent, into Britain. And then we find that this individual, this royal, who occupies a title Princess of Kent, is coming from a region in Europe, Czech Republic, that is also from a foundational black rulership, you see. I hope you're picking up the patterns here. Now, what was very interesting about this individual is that, as you can see from the red arrow, that she wore a Moorish piece of jewellery. And of course, mainstream reportage went into a set of falsehoods and claimed that she was being racist, when, as you can see from the evidence, and you know, a lot of people know this, that she wasn't being racist at all. What she was doing was revering and venerating the original ruling monarchs of even her own region, never mind Europe. And so what happened was that a lot of people read it as kind of surface individuals. They read it and said, oh, what a disgrace, what a shame. But we, the researchers who are deep into this history, know what she was alluding to. And this is what we must do. We must now realize the coded symbols and signs that are put out there and understand what message is actually being portrayed. And so we find from these two individuals, when you dig deep, as Dr. Valentine teaches us, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet. And this must reflect in our research endeavours. And so we're going to move on to her father now. And so Marie Christine Anna Agnes, otherwise known as Princess Michael of Kent, her father was also known as Baron Gunther or Gunther von Riebnitz. Gunther or Gunther. What does the evidence reveal about that particular name? We find that Gunther, frequently found in Upper Germany, and please look at the map. This is so very, very important that we keep our spatial concepts always in a constant flow state. So if I'm talking about Czech Republic, you have to keep aware of what's happening in Germany when these names and regions are revealed. That Gunther, short form of Gunzel, Gunther, Gernot, Giseld, or Gisela, were the famous kings, French kings, Burgundy kings at the court of Worms. Now we know that Worms is in Germany, so we have to keep this fluidity and travelling constantly in our minds as we are restoring the original holders of these surnames. Now, Gundheri, this is the father who carries this name, Gunther. is the Old Saxon form Gudher or Gudrun, Gunther, which was a leading noble name in the family of Schwarzenberg in Thuringia. And Thuringia, you can see that just borders the eastern part of the Czech Republic, you see. Schwarzenberg, it is a branch of this particular noble ancient family, Schwarzenberg. Now, we know that Schwarz means black, and we have Schwarzkopf and all of those derivatives, Schwarz, Schwarzen, and of course I document all of that in issue 16 massively, so I do encourage you to have a look at that. So we find that Princess of Kent, coming from this region in the Czech Republic and having antecedent roots there, is moving through with a father who shares a foundational black name, Gunther, which is a branch of the Schwarzenberg family, another FB family. And so the crests, as they emerge onto the slide, you see that they are warriors. You see, they are warriors, they are soldiers, they have what we would term perhaps some military prowess as defenders of the realm. And they are clearly melanated individuals because they are the carriers of this noble name. And so this is where we are. The presentation today, or the underpinnings, is a segment, a slice, an aspect into what has now been seeded as a brand new genre. The Dictionary of Foundational Black British Surnames is the creation of a brand new subgenre. And because I am able to, I am literally saturated with all of this evidence, so many names from their original stem, their beginnings, are forming the aspects or the content of this new subgenre, which is the culmination of a 10-year longitudinal project. Don't think that this happened overnight, because it certainly didn't. And it continues now in real time. But it is the discovery through onomastics, which are the people, the places, and their names, and getting into the foundational populations through those research methodologies, that we have been able to create this brand new subgenre. And so it is exciting to be part and the founder of this research. It's very, very exciting to delve in every single day into these rescuing operations, if you like, of the original holders. And so we found at the beginning of this presentation that Keir Starmer means the little black one or the dark one through his name as we travel geographically back to the original populations. And then we looked at some of those regions in Germany through Kent and Gunther and Schwarz, that these are all foundational surnames. And so when you look at this slide, and you will see the bust of this magnificent FB noble ruler, through the surname dictionary compilation, you will discover the true name of this noble FBB and his normal lineage in the dictionary series. Because what we are able to do now, which is a power move methodologically, is that the many images that are put up or presented in these books, they're from mainstream researchers, that they are labeling these individuals as Africans, slaves, or servants. But with a little bit of research and methodological know-how, you can recover the true identities. And most of the time, 99.9% of the time, that they are usually indigenous to the region in which they were found in. And so in this new dictionary series, you will discover how the Dudleys, Birminghams, and Paynells, or Payne, became barons and dukes in the dictionary series. You will also discover who the original knights of Knightsbridge, this is where we get the name from in London, Knightsbridge, which is such an affluent area, and we know why. That they were wealthy FB landowners in the dictionary series. You'll discover this and so much more. There's already been a few 5-star reviews that are coming in already with the content of this dictionary series. It's material that you will find nowhere else. It's quite incredible to know that Edward III, let me just give you a little slice, a little example, that Edward III, another FB ruler, created the Order of the Guards, the Order of the Garter, that were the original 25 knights of the realm, and his favourite knight was Sir James Audley. And he was another very wealthy landowner that is documented with his image and the primary text to describe some of his chivalrous or his chivalry that was recognised by Edward III. Now don't forget, Edward III, grandson, is Richard II. You see, another piece of the jigsaw puzzle being put back together. And so, as we conclude today's presentation, I urge you to, if you want to really be grounded in who you are, that you pick up a copy of the first ever edition of the Dictionary of Foundational Black British Surnames. And look out, because we are now working on part 2. Until next time, Hu Amsha, to awaken.